Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt something was off? Nobody said anything. Nobody confronted you. Nobody openly criticized you. And yet something felt heavy. A strange tension. An invisible pressure. A feeling that someone in the room didn't want to see you succeed. Most people dismiss these moments. They tell themselves they're imagining things, being overly sensitive, reading too much into the situation. But empaths often experience something different. Because empaths don't just listen to words. They notice energy, body language, facial expressions, tone shifts, micro-reactions, the subtle signals most people overlook. And sometimes those signals reveal something uncomfortable. Jealousy. Not the obvious kind. Not the kind that announces itself openly. The hidden kind. The silent kind. The kind that smiles at your success while secretly resenting it. And if you're an empath, this type of energy can affect you more than you realize. Because empaths naturally absorb. They absorb emotions, atmospheres, tension, negativity, stress. And unfortunately, they often absorb jealousy too, without even realizing it. That's why today's discussion may be one of the most important conversations an empath can ever hear, because there is a shield every empath eventually needs. A lifetime shield. Not against criticism, not against disagreement, but against jealous energy. The kind of energy that quietly drains confidence, steals peace, and creates self-doubt. The kind of energy that can follow you through friendships, workplaces, relationships, and even family dynamics. And the strange thing is that many empaths spend years suffering from its effects without ever understanding what's happening. They assume the problem is within themselves, when in reality, they're carrying emotions that never belonged to them in the first place. To understand this shield, we first need to understand why jealousy affects empaths so deeply. Most people see jealousy as an emotion. And technically that's true. But jealousy is rarely just one emotion. It's often a mixture. Insecurity, comparison, fear, resentment, scarcity, unhealed wounds, all wrapped together. When someone experiences jealousy, they may not express it directly. Instead, it leaks out indirectly. Through subtle criticism, passive-aggressive comments, lack of support, dismissive behavior, backhanded compliments, coldness disguised as politeness. And because empaths naturally search for harmony, these mixed signals can be incredibly confusing. The empath notices the inconsistency. They sense the tension, but they struggle to understand it, because they often assume others think the way they do. They assume kindness is genuine, support is sincere, encouragement is authentic. Unfortunately, that assumption sometimes creates vulnerability. Because not everyone celebrates your growth. Not everyone celebrates your healing. Not everyone celebrates your success. And one of the hardest lessons many empaths learn is this. Your growth can trigger someone else's insecurity. Think about that for a moment. You can be doing nothing wrong, working hard, healing, improving yourself, building confidence, pursuing your goals, living authentically, and someone may still resent you. Not because you've harmed them, because your progress reminds them of what they're avoiding in themselves. This realization is often shocking for empaths, because they rarely operate from competition. They genuinely want others to succeed. When good things happen to someone else, they celebrate. When others grow, they feel inspired. When others win, they feel happy. So when jealousy is directed toward them, it feels confusing, unnatural, even unfair. And that's exactly why jealous energy can become dangerous. Because empaths frequently fail to recognize it. Instead of identifying jealousy, they internalize it. They start questioning themselves. Maybe I'm talking too much. Maybe I should stay smaller. Maybe I should stop sharing my achievements. Maybe I should hide my success. Maybe I should make myself less visible. Without realizing it, they begin shrinking. Not because they're arrogant, because they want harmony, because they don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, because they don't want conflict. But here's the problem. The moment you start shrinking to accommodate someone else's jealousy, you've handed them power they never earned. And this is where the shield becomes necessary, because every empath eventually reaches a crossroads, a moment where they must decide, will I continue carrying other people's emotions, or will I learn to separate their feelings from my identity? That question changes everything. The first layer of the empath's lifetime shield is awareness. Simple awareness. Most people underestimate how powerful awareness truly is. The moment you recognize jealousy for what it is, its power begins weakening. Imagine walking through life believing every negative reaction reflects something wrong with you. That's exhausting. Now imagine realizing that some reactions have absolutely nothing to do with you. Suddenly the burden becomes lighter. Awareness allows you to stop personalizing everything. Not every criticism is wisdom. Not every rejection is truth. Not every negative response is evidence that you've done something wrong. Sometimes you're simply witnessing someone else's unresolved struggle. And once you understand that, you stop carrying responsibilities that never belonged to you. But awareness alone isn't enough. Because even when empaths recognize jealousy, many still feel affected by it. That's because the second layer of the shield is something many empaths struggle with. Boundaries. Healthy boundaries. Not walls. Not emotional isolation. Boundaries. There's a difference. Walls keep everyone out. Boundaries determine who gets access. Many empaths spend years believing that being loving means being endlessly available, understanding everyone, helping everyone, accommodating everyone, absorbing everyone, until one day they realize something painful. Unlimited access invites unlimited draining, and jealous people often take advantage of this, not intentionally in every case, but consistently. They consume attention, energy, validation, emotional labor, without giving much in return. The empath becomes exhausted, confused, drained, and they can't understand why. The answer is simple. They never learned where other people end and where they begin. That distinction is the beginning of emotional freedom. Because the strongest shield isn't isolation. It's clarity, knowing what belongs to you, and knowing what doesn't. A jealous person's insecurity does not belong to you. A jealous person's resentment does not belong to you. A jealous person's comparisons do not belong to you. Yet countless empaths carry these emotions every single day, as if they're responsible for fixing them, as if they're responsible for healing them, as if they're responsible for making everyone comfortable. But what happens when an empath finally stops carrying those burdens? What happens when they stop absorbing every emotional current around them? What happens when they discover the most powerful layer of the shield, the one that makes jealous energy almost powerless? That's where everything changes. Because the final layers of this lifetime shield aren't about protecting your energy. They're about transforming the way you see yourself. And once that transformation begins, jealous energy loses the very thing it depends on most: access. And that's exactly where our story continues, because the most powerful layer of the empath's lifetime shield is not awareness, not boundaries, not even emotional intelligence. It's self-worth, genuine self-worth, the kind that doesn't depend on applause, approval, validation, recognition, or acceptance from other people. Most empaths spend years searching for confirmation outside themselves. They want everyone to be happy, everyone to feel understood, everyone to feel comfortable. And because of this, they often measure their value through the reactions of others. If people are pleased, they feel secure. If people are upset, they feel responsible. If people withdraw, they question themselves. If people become jealous, they start shrinking. Without realizing it, they've allowed other people's emotions to become the mirror through which they view themselves. But eventually, something changes. The empath begins to understand a life-altering truth. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. Not everyone will appreciate your healing. Not everyone will support your success. And none of those reactions determine your worth. The moment this realization becomes deeply rooted, jealous energy loses much of its influence. Because jealousy feeds on self-doubt. It feeds on uncertainty. It feeds on the need for external approval. When those things disappear, the jealous person's energy has far fewer places to attach itself. Think about how many people hide their gifts because of other people's reactions. They stop speaking up, stop sharing ideas, stop pursuing dreams, stop expressing themselves, not because they lack ability, because they fear making others uncomfortable. This happens more often than most people realize, and empaths are especially vulnerable because they naturally notice discomfort. They naturally notice tension. They naturally notice emotional shifts. The problem is that awareness becomes dangerous when it turns into self-suppression. The empath notices jealousy, then immediately adjusts their behavior. They become smaller, quieter, less visible, less confident, less expressive. And over time, they begin abandoning pieces of themselves, all to avoid triggering someone else's insecurity. But the lifetime shield teaches a different lesson. Someone else's discomfort is not always your responsibility. Read that again. Someone else's discomfort is not always your responsibility. Sometimes discomfort is growth. Sometimes discomfort is reflection. Sometimes discomfort reveals unresolved wounds. And those wounds belong to the person experiencing them, not to you. This understanding changes everything. Because once an empath stops taking responsibility for emotions that aren't theirs, enormous amounts of energy become available. Energy that was previously spent managing other people's feelings, monitoring other people's reactions, preventing other people's insecurities. Now that energy can be invested somewhere else, into growth, healing, creativity, purpose, peace. Another layer of the shield involves understanding the true nature of jealousy itself. Most people think jealous individuals hate them, but that's not always true. In many cases, jealousy has very little to do with the person being envied, and everything to do with the person experiencing the envy. Jealousy often reveals internal conflict. Someone sees a quality they admire but haven't developed, a dream they haven't pursued, a confidence they haven't built, a freedom they haven't allowed themselves. The empath becomes a mirror, and sometimes people dislike mirrors that reflect uncomfortable truths. This perspective creates compassion, but not the kind of compassion that sacrifices itself. Healthy compassion. The kind that understands without absorbing. The kind that observes without carrying. The kind that recognizes pain without making it your responsibility. This distinction is crucial, because many empaths confuse compassion with ownership. They think understanding someone's pain means fixing it, healing it, solving it, carrying it. But mature empathy understands something different. You can care deeply without taking possession of another person's emotional burden. You can understand without absorbing. You can support without sacrificing yourself. And this realization becomes one of the strongest shields an empath can ever develop. There is another important truth that many empaths eventually discover. Jealous energy often reveals itself through patterns. At first, the signs seem small: a dismissive comment, a lack of enthusiasm, a subtle criticism disguised as advice, a tendency to minimize achievements, a habit of changing the subject when good news is shared. Tiny moments, easy to overlook, easy to excuse. But patterns tell stories, and over time, those stories become clear. The empath begins noticing that certain people consistently struggle to celebrate their success, consistently struggle to support their growth, consistently struggle to show genuine happiness for positive developments. This recognition can be painful, especially when the person is a friend, a family member, a coworker, someone they care about. But awareness creates freedom, because once you see the pattern, you can make better decisions. You can adjust expectations, strengthen boundaries, protect your energy without needing conflict, without needing revenge, without needing hostility. One of the greatest mistakes empaths make is believing every relationship must be preserved, every friendship, every connection, every bond. But life teaches a different lesson. Not every relationship is meant to accompany you into every season of growth. Some people celebrate who you were, but struggle with who you're becoming. Some people support your survival, but resent your success. Some people connect with your wounds, but become uncomfortable with your healing. This doesn't automatically make them bad people, but it does mean their presence may require reevaluation. And this is where another layer of the shield emerges. Permission. Permission to outgrow relationships. Permission to evolve. Permission to change. Permission to stop apologizing for your growth. Many empaths spend years apologizing for becoming stronger, more confident, more successful, more self-aware, more healed. As though growth is somehow selfish, as though healing requires permission. But growth is not betrayal. Healing is not betrayal. Success is not betrayal. Authenticity is not betrayal. The people who genuinely care about you will understand this. In fact, they'll celebrate it. And that brings us to perhaps the most powerful shield of all, inner peace. Because jealous energy cannot easily penetrate a person who has found peace within themselves. Notice that I didn't say perfection. No one is perfect. No one is immune to criticism. No one is immune to emotional pain. But inner peace changes how those experiences affect you. Instead of immediately questioning yourself, you become curious. Instead of absorbing every opinion, you evaluate it. Instead of carrying every emotional reaction, you observe it. This creates emotional distance, not coldness, not detachment, perspective. And perspective is incredibly powerful. Because perspective allows you to see what belongs to you and what belongs to someone else. Without that clarity, empaths absorb everything. With that clarity, they absorb only what is theirs to carry. And that difference can transform an entire life. The irony is that many empaths spend years searching for a shield outside themselves, a technique, a ritual, a strategy, a magical solution. But the strongest shield has been developing inside them all along. Every lesson, every challenge, every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment of growth. All of it was building something: wisdom, discernment, boundaries, self-respect, awareness, and eventually, self-trust. Because self-trust may be the final piece of the shield, the ability to trust what you see, trust what you feel, trust what you observe, without immediately dismissing yourself, without assuming you're imagining things, without convincing yourself that every uncomfortable feeling must be wrong. Healthy self-trust allows empaths to recognize jealousy without becoming consumed by it, to notice negativity without absorbing it, to acknowledge insecurity without carrying it. And once that happens, jealous energy loses its greatest source of power: access. The access it once had to your confidence, your peace, your focus, your identity, your sense of worth. Because the truth is that jealous energy only becomes dangerous when it convinces you to abandon yourself, to become smaller, quieter, less authentic, less visible, less alive. And the lifetime shield exists to prevent exactly that. It reminds you that your purpose is not to shrink for the comfort of others. Your purpose is not to dim your light so someone else can avoid facing their shadows. Your purpose is not to carry emotions that never belonged to you. Your purpose is to live authentically, grow freely, love deeply, and remain connected to who you are. Even when others struggle with it, especially when others struggle with it. Because the healthiest empath eventually learns a lesson that changes everything. You can be kind without being consumed, compassionate without being controlled, understanding without being overwhelmed, supportive without self-sacrifice, and protected without becoming closed-hearted. That is the true lifetime shield, not a wall, not armor, not isolation, but a deep understanding of where you end and where everyone else begins. And once an empath truly learns that lesson, jealous energy no longer feels like a threat. It becomes simply another emotion passing through the world, an emotion that belongs to someone else, not to you. And that realization may be one of the most freeing discoveries an empath ever makes.